Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Kelly Green Hour. As this has been one very active opening week of free agency in the National Football League for the Philadelphia Eagles. I'm your host, LJ Harrell, and as always, I am joined by my co-host, Connor Donald. Connor, we have a lot to talk about. What's going on?
Yeah, we'll keep it quick, but you say just the Eagles. It was for
Well, for everybody.
everybody. This
Yeah.
was just my phone was like between the number of group chats, man. I don't know. I've seen more tweets shared than I've ever seen in a 1 week span in my entire life. So let's dive right in.
Yep, as always, before we get started, follow us on Twitter at Kelly Green Hour. Follow Connor on Twitter at Connor10. Follow me on Twitter at LJ54. And follow Edge of Philly Sports on Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook at Edge of Philly Sports. And if you're joining us live, let us know your thoughts in the comment section. We'll get to as many as we can. It's going to be a busy one. Let us know your thoughts on the Philadelphia Eagles moves, what your favorite move was, what the questionable move was, and your favorite overall move in free agency throughout the entire NFL. But first, we're going to start with another retirement of the core four. Last week, it was Jason Kelce. This week, Fletcher Cox. And apparently, he made this decision right after the playoff game because I don't know how it didn't get out. All the stuff about Jason Kelce got out, but it didn't get out until really, there was talk of him retiring recently. But after if I don't know if you had a chance to see the video, Connor, that the Eagles put out, and he had mentioned in the post game locker room in Tampa, he said he was done. He thanked Jeffrey Lurie, thanked Howie Roseman, thanked the core four. I mean, obviously Lane Johnson, Jason Kelce, Brandon Graham, who've been there pretty much all 12 years with him. Thanked his teammates, thanked everybody pretty much, in the locker room. I'm shocked that didn't get out, honestly. But yeah, what are your thoughts on Fletcher Cox, retirement? Also, I mean, we know Jason Kelce's the first ballot Hall of Famer. Fletcher Cox is definitely in the Eagles Hall of Fame. And now that Aaron Donald has retired, he's definitely not a first ballot NFL Hall of Famer because Aaron Donald's going to get in as a first ballot. But, do you think Fletcher Cox is potentially a Hall of Famer down the road, not first ballot, but maybe, 6, 7, 8 years down the road?
Yeah, I mean, I guess, if a class is weak enough, maybe down the road someday he might
Eric
get
Allen
in.
still hasn't gotten in, or Seth Joyner. So
there's some that haven't gotten in that more likely deserve to be in over Fletcher Cox. I think Fletcher Cox obviously goes down in Eagles history. That's without a doubt. He's in our Hall of Fame. Do you retire 91? Well, we talked about this last week. We're running out of numbers. How many more can we retire? But I mean, I really think like him, Brandon Graham, Lane Johnson, and Jason Kelce, those numbers probably will get retired because they are part of a core four that will go down in Eagles franchise history as a core four that really stuck it out together for, like you said, 12 years. These guys have pretty much been together
years.
the whole
Brandon
run
Graham,
of it.
15 years.
Exactly. But like, just to think that these four guys alone were a core for a decade, and the stats that they put up still, they're not going to stay. Well, Jason Kelce obviously stands out, first ballot Hall of Famer for the NFL. The other Lane Johnson probably because his numbers for pressures given up and stuff are amazing.
I don't know about first ballot because of the PED stuff, but
that could be tough. But I don't think Fletcher Cox and Brandon Graham make it into the Hall of Fame, but they definitely go down in Eagles history. So
I think Fletch has a chance. And like you said,
I agree.
It depends on who's eligible. So in 2029, there's going to be people that are, eligible now that haven't been in that are going to be eligible again. But Jason Kelce should get in. Aaron Donald's definitely going to get in. So there's going to be the comparison in this generation, in this decade. Aaron Donald was always the top defensive tackle. Fletcher Cox was always number 2. So that'll be interesting to see how that gets weighed, because there's gonna be that argument in the room, in that Hall of Fame room, when each city has a writer in there and they're making the argument, Fletcher Cox and obviously Fletcher Cox or Aaron Donald. There's really no argument. It's going to be Aaron Donald, but then it's going to depend on who else is involved or who else is eligible, who else is on the ballot. But I think Cox can get in. It's just not going to be in 2029. It might be 2020. No. It might be 2032. 2033. Yeah. But I think he has a chance to get in.
And I mean, ultimately, I think Fletcher Cox could have got paid. I think he knows he could have got paid. I think if there was a chance he came back for another season, I really don't think it was going to be in Philadelphia, unfortunately, because he had a really good season. He had a good enough season. I think he could have got paid and went.
If he wanted to play, it would have been in Philly.
I think he would have too. I also think he would have had a market. Just like
he had a market last year.
Exactly.
But Howie Roseman said at the combine that he couldn't see Jason Kelce, Fletcher Cox, like he couldn't see him wearing another uniform. So if Cox wanted to come back, they would have made it work. He would have been an Eagle for another year. Mr. Crockpot, thanks for joining us. Is Aaron Donald a top 10 player in NFL history? He might be the best defensive lineman in NFL history. I know there's Reggie White. I know there's Lawrence Taylor. He's up there as a top 3 player at the defense in the defensive line. I think he's a top 10 player in NFL history. I'm not going to go through, like, we don't have the time. Maybe we can do another show on that. But thinking about, obviously, Tom Brady, Joe Montana, Barry
I think about
Payton.
When I think about this stuff too, I think about impact on like the generation they played through, impact on the position. Like there's very few defensive linemen that you're going to talk about in the same vein as Aaron Donald over the next
pictures
decade.
Of 4 guys. Have you seen pictures going on Twitter of 4 guys blocking him?
No, exactly. It's such a different time. Like you didn't see that from the older offensive linemen. Like you had the traditional double team or whatever, but you had almost entire offensive lines focused solely on Aaron Donald. Like that's impressive. I mean, I would put him in the top 10 players in NFL history, maybe at the back end of it, but solely because of, the impact that he had on the game and the value that people started to put on defensive linemen. Look at the contracts defensive linemen get. Thank you, Aaron Donald, because he is one of the core reasons behind those contracts getting as absurd as they are.
And he had 0 sacks in his career against the Eagles. If you want, Jeff Stoutland should be assistant coaches go in the Hall of Fame. That's Jeff Stoutland's. Why should Jeff Stoutland be in the Hall of Fame? Aaron Donald had 0 sacks against the Eagles in 5 career games.
I know, and I mean, everyone will be like, "Oh, it's only 5 career games," but you think about it, that's pretty impressive considering I think he has a sack against every other team in the NFL. So I mean, like to run through 30 teams, 31 teams because he's on the team, but to go through and find 30 teams have allowed a sack to this guy, but one team has not in 5 times that they've met. That's extremely impressive and speaks volumes, like you said.
Yep. So when Fletch didn't have the press conference that Jason Kelce had, but and I was really emotional when Jason Kelce retired. I was emotional but not to the point where I was like I would tear up for Fletcher Cox. But like again, Fletcher Cox been here for 12 years, won a Super Bowl, been through the ups, been through the downs. That was a great. I think Andy Reid traded up in the draft to get Fletcher Cox. So that was a great move by him. So kudos to Fletch. And again, just like Kelce, I'm glad he's able to walk out and retire on his own terms. He can walk. If he wants to have kids, in a couple of years, he's able to not be wheelchair bound or CT, whatever. He's able to enjoy that time with his family. So I'm glad he's able to go out and he's going to be missed. He is. And again, like you mentioned, we talked about the jersey retirement. There's only so many numbers. 62 will get retired. I don't know. They might unofficially retire it like they've unofficially retired Shady McCoys and Randall Cunningham's and Nick Foles to an extent. Like nobody wears those 3 numbers at all. So maybe in 10, 15 years, somebody will wear 91. But I don't think anytime soon anybody's going to wear 91.
Yeah, and I just feel like the Kelce's, Jason and Travis together, I'm going to loop them in here, just have a way of making you feel a certain type of way. They hit you in the feels, the story, their mom always being there and everything that they say and the way they say it. I mean, they just have a way of making you feel a certain way. Whereas like a Fletcher Cox probably doesn't hit you in the feels that same way. But I mean, still good for Fletcher. Like you said, we always have to see the guys who can walk away on their own accord. CT, I mean, that could be up for debate down the road if he has it or not, but ultimately he gets to walk away with a lot more than some other people have left the game with that, not on their own accord. So,
Luffy Uchiha 420. I'm sorry if I mispronounced that. Aaron Donald was overrated, in my opinion. Cox was damn near his level in his prime. So while they both played the same position, I feel like they were a little different. Just if you like, Aaron Donald did win 3 Defensive Player of the Year awards, made the Pro Bowl every year, made 8 All-Pros. The only 2 he didn't make were his rookie year and in 2022 when he got hurt. But he still made the Pro Bowl every year that he played. And he was able, he got the sack. He's got more sacks, I think, than Cox and whatnot. Cox, I think they were different. Like Aaron Donald was more of a speed defensive tackle. You game plan for Aaron Donald. I think in the early part of Cox's career, there was like, all right, we need to know where 91 was, but it wasn't like we're going to solely game plan for Cox. And again, I'm a big Fletcher Cox fan. But again, in this generation, in this time, it was Aaron Donald, and then it was Fletcher Cox. I don't know what you think, Connor.
Yeah. I was just looking up some of the stats just to see. So it is Fletcher Cox played 34 more games in his career than Aaron Donald, and he had 41 less sacks. So it was 111 sacks to 70. The solo tackles were actually in favor of Fletcher Cox, but that could be, the fact that he played 34 more games. Forced fumbles goes to Aaron Donald. Fumble recoveries go to Fletcher Cox. And then the honors, they're tied in Super Bowls. And outside of that, Pro Bowls, All Pros, Defensive Players of the Year, all are Aaron Donald, and by a significant handful. And I'm not sitting here saying that it's all about the accolades and all about those numbers, but I mean, like you said, you game plan to Aaron Donald. You game plan to a whole defensive line when you played the Eagles. You game plan to Aaron Donald when you played the LA Rams. And there's a reason there's images of triple teams, quadruple teams, and pure focus on Aaron Donald, where Fletcher Cox is met with single and double teams more often than not, single teams versus double teams. So I think you have to think of it as, and some people do have this belief that he's overrated because of that, but it's also difficult to talk about defensive tackles in the same vein as maybe you say a quarterback, a cornerback, a safety, the guys who rack up tackles, the guys who statistically look so much more appealing. It's so much harder to talk about defensive tackles. But I mean, I would never say Aaron Donald's overrated. I think he's rated. Some people go above and beyond, okay, is the top 10 player in NFL history? Some people probably think that's a crazy question to ask. I don't necessarily believe it is, because I think he changed the way defensive tackles are schemed for and looked at. And like I said, thank you, Aaron Donald, for the paydays that a lot of these defensive tackles are getting. Without Aaron Donald's payday, there aren't any of these paydays coming around and the value that's on a defensive tackle. So I think he has impacted this generation so much. And how you have to look at defensive tackles, that I don't think he's overrated. I just think some people aren't prepared to have the conversation of defensive tackles the way you have to with Aaron Donald and his impact on the game.
Yeah. But again, they're both great players in their own right. It's just
agreed.
One is just a little bit above, and he'll be a first ballot Hall of Famer, just like Jason Kelce. Yeah, I agree. Pablo, yes, Donald, we did mention a little earlier, Donald did not have any sacks against the Eagles in 5 career games. So again, kudos to the offensive line. Again, the Eagles prioritizing the offensive line, and Jeff Statlin. That's his resume for going into the Hall of Fame as an assistant coach. Aaron Donald, first ballot Hall of Famer, one of the greatest defensive linemen of all time. 0 sacks against my offensive lines. Thank you. Come again.
And fun fact, 4 games Fletcher Cox played against the Rams, he has 1 sack.
Hey,
so he did get a sack. He's got that going for him.
One thing I did notice, whenever the Eagles went up against another defensive player, a J.J. Watt and Aaron Donald, somebody that is talked in a different vein than Fletcher Cox. Fletcher Cox played a hell of a game, and he did that. Like, whether it's stopping the run, whether it's getting pressure, like he stepped up in those big games. So I think Fletcher Cox will eventually be a Hall of Famer. He just won't be a first ballot Hall of Famer. All right, let's jump to free agency, as the legal tampering period opened up on Monday at noon, where you can start assigning guys on Wednesday at 4. The Eagles came in with about $40 to $50 million. And boy, before we jump into who they signed, they did sign or re-sign some people. Landon Dickerson, extension, the highest paid guard in NFL history. We knew he was going to get signed. Did not expect him to get this type of money. 4 years, $84 million, $21 million a year, $50 million guaranteed. And I liked in his press conference that he said he wants to become more of a vocal leader. Obviously, that was Jason Kelce. Well, Jason Kelce retired, obviously. And we know Juergens is going to center. There's been talk, and some people said, watch out. Maybe Dickerson could be your center. I know you don't want to split up Mailata and Dickerson, but Dickerson at Alabama and in college, he was a center, and he can do it. And if Juergens struggles, maybe you go to Landon Dickerson at center. So the contract that they gave him, that's like a center contract if you think about it. You know, obviously he's a guard. He got a lot of money. Maybe they're thinking potentially he could be the center.
Maybe. I think they're more than happy with their situation right now, minus, you got to kind of figure out the right guard situation. But I think it's easier to replace a guard than it is to replace a center. You got to get the right guy in at center. I don't think Dickerson's going to be moving in anytime soon. But it is possible. Like they pay their offensive linemen very well for a reason, and they value versatility and flexibility and that ability if things get really rough. And they think they have someone they can trust behind Dickerson at left guard. Maybe they kick him inside if they're struggling to replace Jason Kelce. I think Cam Juergens can do it. I think he can be the replacement. And so we'll see how that all plays out. But I mean, well-deserved for Landon Dickerson. Reset in the guard market again. It'll be interesting to see how other guards start to get paid. But it was good to get that extension out of the way. Devontae Smith extension definitely needs to come very quickly as well.
I've mentioned that Devontae Smith needs definitely should come. And I get it. You're going to be paying $50 million for a quarterback, two $25 million receivers, and we have the running back, which we'll talk about in a little bit. Another extension, Brandon Graham said he wants to come back for one more year to make it 15. This is his farewell tour with the Eagles. He got it. He got what he wanted. Look, he took a step back in terms of playing time, but him and Fletcher Cox were the two best defensive players in the playoff game. That's not saying much because the rest of the defense didn't show up. But, if he can, play 25% of the snaps throughout the season, and then you get to the playoffs and you ramp it up and he can become a force, do it. But the Eagles have, again, we always talk about how they prioritize the offensive and defensive line. They have a lot of pass rushers right now. Obviously, they have Sweat. He signed an extension. I believe Reddick is going to stay. He'll be back. Got Brandon Graham. I also think, we have Bryce Huff. You think about Jalen Carter. He can get after the quarterback. Melton Williams. They have a lot of guys. They're going to try with under Vic Fangio. They're going to try to come at you at waves on that defensive line. And they struggled. Obviously, the last 6-7 games of the year, couldn't get after the quarterback. People weren't playing their assignments. Well, I think that's going to change this year because Fangio is going to get after them, and they're going to have a true leader running that defense.
Absolutely. People respect Fangio. It was clear, that they didn't really respect Sean Desai, and it showed as the reports came out, and he essentially lost his job and got moved to the booth. And then Matt Patricia, they didn't respect Matt Patricia anymore either. Than they did Sean Desai, but that could also be the fact that he didn't get to build the defense his way, although I don't think I wanted to see a Matt Patricia built defense in Philadelphia anyways. So for Brandon Graham, welcome back. Good for you. I mean, it's going to be a deep defensive line. He's probably going to play 50% or less of snaps, and that's how it should be. So welcome back. And the financials are not fully available yet, but I imagine it was extremely team friendly. It was last year
only
too.
$4 million.
Yeah, it was pretty cheap.
$4 million. So he obviously wanted that 15th year. Wasn't trying to break the bank. He's got all the money in the world. He got a great family, beautiful kids. So he just wanted. He loves the area. Loves Philly. Just wanted to get to 15. That was his goal, I think, coming in. And remember, at the time, I wasn't happy. I wanted Earl Thomas. I'm glad that I was wrong. That I was wrong. All right. Next, Jake Elliott signed a 4-year, $24 million extension, becoming tied for the highest paid kicker in the NFL with the GOAT Justin Tucker. But if I needed a big kick right now, I might take Elliott over Tucker. And I love Tucker because I get Tucker in every one of my fantasy leagues. But I might take Jake Elliott over Justin Tucker right now. It's great to have that battery, that the special team battery. Rick Lovato signed a 1-year extension. Braden Mann signed a 2-year extension to come back. Having that continuity, having that consistency, being able to go from John Dorenbos to Rick Lovato and not miss a beat. Brandon Mann was the best punter the Eagles have had since Cam Johnson. And Elliott, best kickers the Eagles have had since David Akers. It's just good to have that continuity and to see the special team stay intact under Michael Clay.
Yeah, I mean, it was nice to see that, the Eagles have pursued Braden Mann on multiple occasions. They finally get Braden Mann. They give him the extension he deserves. And he did a really good job, especially in a time where we were having a lot of volatility there. Rick Lovato, same thing. You can't underestimate the value of a long snapper sometimes, and the importance of them, especially their special teams, and kickers will say it, punters will say it. You got to have a guy who can get the ball right to you in the right spot at the right time, so that everything can go perfectly as planned, because we know that special teams is a lot about timing and having the right time and sequence. Jake Elliott, I mean, he deserved it. I mean, I like when you look, like I posted his numbers. I think he has I can't remember right now. It was a 90 something percentage, 90% kick successful extra point rate, and like 80. I think it was 82% on field goals. But the issue was there was a point, and I remember it, where he was not very good. There was 2 seasons there where his percentage was actually pretty low, right closer to the start of his career. I think it was like year 1 and 2 maybe, where it was a lot lower. And if you look at the
The
last
year
3
we won the
years,
Super Bowl, because that was his
it
first
might
year
have
with
been.
us.
I'll have to look back. I remember seeing, and he had like there was a couple years where he was like 70 and 80% field goal rates, which is not that great for a kicker. You want better than that. But now, like if you look at the last 3 seasons, he's been 85% or better. In 2 of the last 3 seasons, he was 90% or better in field goals. He deserves it. And we've seen him make the money kicks. When you say you want a big time kick, I think back to the Giants game, the 61 yarder, the amount of times we put him out last year, 50 plus yards, and he had to hit those kicks. Super Bowl II, he
Against
goes
the
out
Bills
there and
last year
does
in
it.
the rain to go to the overtime.
Yep, he's gone out there. We could go through tons of kicks and relive a bunch of those kicks. So definitely good to have those 3 guys locked down, and they're not all that. Elliott's expensive. The other guys are dirt cheap, obviously.
Yeah. Luffy says Jurgens definitely goes. I meant to bring this up when we were talking about Dickerson. Jurgens definitely goes to center, and I can see Steen or Hennessy going to guard. I would, with the moves that the Eagles have made, and I kind of wanted to talk about this after, but I'll say it now. It would not shock me if the Eagles, if Howie wants to trade now, having traded that 3rd round pick this year might change this. But if JC Latham starts to drop and gets to the bottom half of the teens to 20, it wouldn't shock me if the Eagles trade up for Latham. Latham can be your guard for the next 2 or 3 years, and he's your right tackle of the future. Like that's a Howie move if I've ever seen one. And we're talking about they've got a running back, they got a linebacker, they got a safety. Obviously, they have needs still on defense, but with the moves that he's made in free agency, if the Eagles wanted a right tackle of the future, J.C. Latham is that guy, and he could play guard for the next 3 years. And then when Lane Johnson retires, you move Latham out the right tackle, and then go from there.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I can see him going guard, or he taught Mr. Crockpot's talking about Jackson Powers Johnson as well. I mean, I don't know how badly I want to see that happen in round 1, but I know he'd have to go that way to get him in round 1. But I mean, I agree. That would be the move. You take a left tackle, you move him into left guard, and then or right guard. A right tackle, you move him into right guard, and then you play him at right guard until Lane Johnson's done, and then you got your right tackle of the future that you can kick out. I mean, it makes sense. It sounds like the Howie move. As long as you get the right tackle that you want, where like this guy's a really good right tackle. This is someone I can see being there when the time is right, and kicking him outside, and just as if Lane Johnson never. Obviously, I don't want to say as if Lane Johnson never left, because we will feel that void. We will feel that void no matter how he attempts to address this, but. Yeah, I mean, it would be a smart move. I just would hate to see offensive line in the 1st round, but it would be such a Howie thing to do, as Mr. Crockpot says. So, I mean, it'll be interesting. Hennessy, there's a lot of people who talk about Hennessy at right guard. He's a center and a left guard traditionally. So, I mean, I would have a hard time believing that he's going to kick to right guard. But
well, he
said
he played his press conference, I think, was yesterday. He did, yesterday or today, whatever. He did say that he has played all 3 interior positions. So
and if there's anyone who's going to maximize that, it's going to be Jeff Stoutland. If he sees that guy as being someone he can kick out to right guard and making it work, good. If it's someone who's a depth option at guard, center, and both guards and center, it equally is good for in case, hopefully not, but in case an injury happens.
Yep. And then the final restructure was Josh Sweat. There was a lot of talk of him getting traded. Obviously, him and Hassan Reddick wanting a new contract, wants to stay in Philly. And then Sweat, he was told he was going to be traded. And he even put out on Instagram or whatever that he's going to miss everybody. And boom, signs a 1-year deal for $10 million to get some guarantees. Apparently brings down his cap a little bit, so I guess that helps. But he'll be back, and I've said it before, and I'll say it again, and a lot of people say it. You can never have enough defensive linemen. You can never have enough pass rushers. I'm not getting rid of Hassan Reddick just because you think you need to get rid of somebody. I'm keeping Hassan Reddick to go with Josh Sweat, Brandon Graham, Bryce Huff, to go along with these guys and whoever they decide to draft. Keep 2017. We had that rotation, waves of guys. Keep it going. Again, if they were going to get rid of one of the guys, I would have got rid of Sweat and kept Reddick. So I hope they don't get rid of Reddick, but keep them both. You still have plenty of salary cap space. No need to get rid of them just to get rid of them. Keep them all. Keep them all.
Yeah, I mean, as far as he's saving money, I mean, Howie probably built some void years into this contract, and there's probably some dead money at the end of the contract. But it is what it is. This is a Howie way. We know that we're going to have one of the top dead cap rates year over year in the NFL because this is just how Howie does it. It's how he builds his contracts. It's how he's able to have money and that financial stability that, the Dallas Cowboys, LA Chargers, some other teams really wish they had at this point as they struggle to get under the cap and deal with cap situations. I mean, I agree with you. There's no people are like, oh, that means Reddick's out. I don't think it necessarily means Reddick's out. Reddick really wants to stay in Philadelphia. He's made it. He's been pretty vocal that he wants to stay in Philadelphia. So, I mean, at this point, it's, do you want the money because you can go anywhere as you want and someone's probably going to pay you, or do you want to stay in Philadelphia? Howie's probably going to make him play out his contract. He's under the cap, despite that Hassan Reddick's cap hit's probably fairly significant because it's probably the entirety of his base salary guaranteed now, or the majority of it. So, I mean, I don't see any reason to move him. Like you said, you can have that fresh rotation. We don't know, we haven't gotten into Bryce Huff, but I mean, Bryce Huff's never played more than 50% of snaps on a defense yet in his career in the 4 years he was in New York. So what do we think he can play? Take on a more prominent role of 75, 80, 90% of snaps like we've demanded of some of our edges in the past? We don't know that yet. And no one's going to be able to tell me based on just tape, yeah, this guy's got the juice to do it, because we don't know until this guy gets on the field and is forced to go out there for 70 or 80 snaps in a game and seeing what he's got. So having this healthy rotation, just like you said, back when we won the Super Bowl, it was so important. One of the things was that these guys were so fresh because they were able to play fifth. The top guys were playing 60% of snaps, while the bottom was playing 30 or 40% of snaps. And they were able to stay so fresh until the end of the year and through the playoffs. And it saved their health as well. It spared them, a lot of them, from injuries. So I would keep both. If you can keep Reddick, if you can find a way to extend them, go ahead. But I mean, you got Devontae Smith to extend. I know Luffy said, we have more cap next year. Yeah, there's more free agents as well. So you got to take a look at, it's all, it all encompassing thing that you got to look at. But it's true. The cap's going to keep going up. Howie's going to find more ways to work. AJ Brown will want an extension. We'll figure it out. Howie will figure it out. If there's one thing we know, Howie will figure it out. And we'll see what happens. But yeah, I'd keep both of them. If you can keep both of them, good. If you get an offer you downright cannot refuse for Hassan Reddick,
if somebody gives you a first rounder, you take it.
I mean, at this point, you talk about a guy who's going on the wrong side of 30 years old as an edge rusher, and somebody wants to give you like a 2 and a 4 or some type of package like that. I'd almost start to consider that too. But I'm not sitting here saying get rid of him. No, I think we should keep him.
Yeah. I keep forgetting about Nolan Smith. But yeah, I mean, add Nolan Smith into that. Mr. Crockpot says keep both, but if Nolan Smith showed any kind of promise in year one, we're probably having a different conversation. Probably.
Very much we would be.
Yeah, they could have taken, Joey Porter Jr. at 30 instead of Nolan Smith, and we wouldn't be talking about cornerbacks either. All right, now let's go to the free agent signings. The big one, the one that shocked a lot of people, me included. I would have kept DeAndre Swift. He went to the Bears 15 minutes after free agency opened. All this tampering talk, how the Bears haven't been investigated 2 years in a row. TJ Edwards last year, DeAndre Swift this year, having signed somebody, 15 minutes after 12 o'clock.
Literally the first move in the tampering period back-to-back years.
Yep. But the Eagles are going to get investigated, and the Falcons are going to get investigated because James freaking Franklin doesn't know how to keep. I hate James Franklin. I hate Penn State with a passion. That's neither here nor there. But the Eagles signed Saquon Barkley to a 3-year, $37.5 million, $37.75 million contract, 12.583 average, and $26 million guaranteed. So it's a 2-year contract. We'll see what happens after that. If he's good these next 2 years, he'll probably get a restructure or an extension to lower the cap hit. But I was shocked. I know that there's all this talk, and Howie has looked. He wanted to draft CMC. He tried to trade for CMC when he went to the Niners. He was going to he would have signed Saquon last year if he didn't get franchise tag. So he wants a running back. And we know they had LaShawn McCoy, and LaShawn McCoy got a couple of contracts. But I was shocked that he gave this money to Saquon. But if he can stay healthy, this offense, if you stack the box, you can't double the 2 receivers on the outside. If you double the 2 receivers on the outside, light box, Saquon and Jalen coming at you, good luck to opposing defenses.
Yeah, and I mean, a lot of people are talking about, will he have the Christian McCaffrey impact that Christian McCaffrey had when he moved into San Francisco? I mean, I get it. The guy's been hurt a lot. He's been injured. I mean, look at some of the injuries Saquon Barkley's had. They've been freak, like the sprained ankle where someone stepped on his ankle. Some of these injuries were just freak accidents. He was playing behind an atrocious offensive line, terrible offense altogether that leaned on him way too much. This is just such a completely different monster that he's going to be playing on than he's ever been on. I agree with you. If you had the chance to get Swift at $8 million or Barkley at $12.25 million, I probably would have went with Swift. I think Swift could have been used better. He could have been used more effectively last season. We saw it down the stretch. He was so good for 10 games. And then as soon as the decline started, they completely abandoned the run game and completely abandoned DeAndre Swift. Didn't use him in his best facet of the game, which is catching passes out of the backfield. We have
a different offensive coordinator this year.
We do, and Kellen Moore loves a good running back. We've seen his ability to
Kellen
use
Moore's
those.
The one that pushed Howie to sign.
Exactly. So it sounds like he's listening because Vic Fangio apparently made the push for some of the defensive players. So he's listening to his coordinators and giving them what they want. So clearly the coordinators are way more, and should be, based on their tenure in the NFL, way more respected than the 2 coordinators last year. So obviously, I mean, would I have liked to have seen him go a bit cheaper on the running back side? Absolutely. But at the end of the day, it is what it is. Saquon Barkley came out as, it's the words overused, but a generational talent at the time. An easy top running back over that span of a couple seasons in the draft class. So, I mean, I think he can be that.
They took him at number 2 overall, right? Or was it number 4?
It was a top 5 pick. It was not a good decision, and
they needed a quarterback.
They're still regretting it to this day. So, I mean, I'm happy with it though. I mean, at the end of the day, I'm not going to say 2 years at $24 million, as long as he doesn't suffer a torn ACL and a torn ACL, as long as we get a good amount of games out of the guy and he gets his good use and he shows something to this offense and opens up a whole different element to this offense, it's 2 years, it's $26 million. Howie's done worse.
Sure has. What are your thoughts on Tiki Barber? What Tiki Barber had to say about him quickly?
He's just spiteful, man. He's just a guy looking to get his clicks, and here he is. He got his clicks. It's no different than Skip Bayless. Some of this stuff they just say to get their clicks and move on because they're just not. They don't get watched. Yeah. Skip Bayless's show went right down the tubes as soon as Shannon Sharp left.
A couple other offensive signings. Matt Hennessy signed a 1-year deal, and again, we talked about him. He can play the interior offensive line. And Devontae Parker signed a 1-year contract where the Eagles are only paying the vet minimum because the Patriots owe the rest. I mean, there's a chance that Devontae Parker doesn't even make the team. We'll see what happens in the draft, but he's better. Well, Quez Watkins is a free agent, but he's better than Quez, right? Like maybe, but he also plays outside. He doesn't really play the slot. So you're going to see AJ Brown. You're going to see Devontae Smith in the slot, which you're going to see that we saw what Kellen Moore did with CeeDee Lamb when he was with Dallas. Like CeeDee Lamb didn't just run. If you looked at the route tree for AJ Brown and for Devontae Smith last year, it was like this on one side of the field running the same routes over and over again. No, Kellen Moore is going to have these guys running all types of different routes from the left side, the right side, in the slot, not in the slot, on the outside. It's going to be fun to see them be, going up against a nickel corner. Good luck with a nickel corner trying to tackle AJ Brown. So it's not going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, he likes to use his slot receivers. He does a pretty good job with them. I'm just looking back at, because he actually used Keenan Allen quite a bit in the slot last season, and Keenan Allen, well, he has luck wherever he is on the football field, so I don't think you have to worry about that. But I mean,
what kind of luck he has in Chicago.
Yeah, but I mean, I think like we cried for AJ Brown to be used more in the slot because that's just what he did best, and instead he was used outside running a terrible route tree, a limited route tree. But this guy was known for just running over. If you can use Dallas Goedert, Saquon Barkley, and AJ Brown, and like, what do you do in the middle of a defense with those three guys coming at you, and you don't know who's going to catch a ball, who might be running the ball, and then what they're going to do once the ball's in their hands? You just don't know. Like, it would be so hard to game plan for that.
Dallas Goedert might be the fourth option on offense now. Fifth if you want to include Jalen Hurts.
Yep.
Like,
and I mean, I think
imagine the tush push.
Oh, and I mean, my big thing, like Devontae, I think does his best outside. Like the catches that man makes outside, I think he's more effective outside. He's the best guy that you can trust. When you throw up a 50-50 ball, he's coming down with it like 75% of the time. He's someone who I would trust in that position. That's why I'm okay moving AJ Brown in, but not Devontae Smith as much. But Devontae Parker, whatever, if he makes the team, he makes the team. If he doesn't make the team, they probably got far better options. Covey makes the team no matter what. Hopefully Kellen Moore can use Covey a little bit on the offensive side of the ball and use him, I mean, he's a great special teamer, but
I think Isaiah Rodgers is a return specialist, and
yeah,
I think he makes the team.
Oh, I think he definitely makes the team. There's a reason why he got signed while he was suspended. That goes without saying. But I mean, if Britton Covey's on the team, I'd like him to be used in a creative manner, at least try and get him some touches, manufacture him a few touches. I'm sure in this offense that you're going to see that guy like a Devontae Parker, Britton Covey get touches because they're going to be more open. They're going to be wide open. They're going to be the guys that you can look to. But I mean, if Devontae Parker's there, cool. If not, I mean, I don't really care.
It was a low risk.
Whatever.
It's $1 million. All right, let's go to the defensive side of the football. Let's start with the big one, Bryce Huff from the Jets, signing a 3-year, $51.1 million contract, a little over 17 million average value, 34 million guaranteed. The highest paid non-quarterback undrafted free agent in NFL history. He led the Jets in sacks last year, if I'm not mistaken, with 10. He's got it was his breakout year. He played less than 50% of the snaps though, and he wasn't that great against the run. So he's going to come here. Obviously, high expectations to be able to get after the quarterback. Something the Eagles struggled with, especially down the stretch. So, what are your expectations, anticipation of Bryce Huff?
I mean, I guess my expectations are probably lower than Howie. I don't know if I would have been that on him because exactly like you said, the guy, he played 42% of snaps last year. That's it. Like, you're paying a ton of money for at this point. All I can say is he's likely more of a situational player because we don't know if he can handle a full-time playing. The most snaps he played before that was 51%, but the total number of snaps that year was lower than the total number of snaps he played at 42% this year. So, I mean, like you said, we've been so bad against the run. Well, we have the guys inside who help, but as soon as they get outside of there, we've had so much trouble with linebackers and edges trying to make tackles or trying to make plays against the run that, I mean, I don't love the idea of having another guy who's a liability in the run game. But hopefully we see, something better from the approach that Vic Fangio takes with this defense that might improve that or fix that. But I mean, otherwise, I didn't think he was something that special, but it was clear there was going to be quite a significant market for him. My expectations are definitely not not through the roof, not that high. 10 sacks could. I mean, there's a chance he could do a lot better because just like, the year where we had set, what was it, 72 snaps or 72 sacks, we just had such a heavy rotation of guys getting so many sacks. Like some guys had career years that year because of just the amount of pressure that was always coming, the amount of guys who their deep offensive line had to focus on and try and stop. That could be to Bryce Huff's benefit in this defense.
Yeah, Eagles had four players with double-digit sacks, which is the most than one team in NFL history in a season. Another defensive player that we signed, Zach Braun, I think he's special teams linebacker, a special teams guy, and probably more of an edge rusher than he is a linebacker. So maybe another guy that can potentially get after the quarterback. And then my favorite one, CJGJ is back. Obviously, there was his press conference today. He mentioned like he took his feelings out of it last year. Like it was all about feelings for him, and he wanted to stay here. He wanted to be here. Just weren't able to make it work out, and he was happy that they were able to make it work out this year. He signed a 3-year, $27 million contract, which can be maxed out at 33, 9 average, only 10 million guaranteed, so technically only like a 1-year deal. But we are talking about a guy who has been injured a lot. Missed 12 games last year, I think. Missed 6 games with the Eagles. Yeah. But he brings a swag, he brings an attitude. Something. The last time somebody in the Eagles secondary made a hit was him in the Super Bowl against Pacheco. Like he's gonna bring that attitude to this Eagles defense. I can't wait. He's wearing number 8. I think he looks better in 23, but he's gonna wear number 8 in honor of Kobe. But I'm so happy he's back. And look, I'm still of the belief the Eagles should go out there and sign Justin Simmons because Reed Blankenship is not a starting safety in the NFL. He could be a great third safety, a depth safety. Imagine if the Eagles have money, he's still available. Justin Simmons were to get signed. You have Simmons and CJGJ. CJGJ can play all over the place, the nickel, in the box, rush the quarterback. That's only going to help this defense. But bringing CJGJ back was brilliant, and I'm thrilled and ecstatic that he's here.
Yeah, you definitely got to have someone you can trust behind Gardner Johnson because you know that Gardner Johnson's going to be that rover, that guy that Vic Fangio is going to use in a multitude of different ways. At the end of the season, you're going to look at his snap count and you're going to see he played literally in every possible scenario, in the box, probably on the defensive line, in the slot, he outside as a free safety. But you need to have somebody back there that you can trust. And while, like I've said in the past too, I like Reed Blankenship. He makes some nice highlight reels with the way he's like a heat-seeking missile with his tackling. But he can also be just as big of a liability when he misses one of those big tackles. So you have to have someone you can trust back there, someone with some experience. Maybe Simmons, reportedly the market's getting pretty aggressive with him. I don't know if he hasn't signed yet. Maybe he's pulling like the Gardner Johnson of last year and testing his value a little too much, and the market's not actually and it's a little bit of smoke going around, and maybe Howie will still have a chance. But I agree with Luffy. I don't know. I would love to see us draft a safety too. And like all of my mock drafts I've done, I love having Newbin. There's some safeties that I've grabbed. I haven't had him in one yet, but he would be another one. It's because I usually end up getting Newbin ahead of him, and I'm like,
that's the Minnesota safety, right?
It is, and I'm like, well, what are the odds that he's going to draft 2 safeties, especially with Gardner Johnson? And they love Reed Blankenship, so I think they're going to give Reed Blankenship every opportunity to be out there. When's Sidney Brown going to be back? We don't know, but what's his role going to be in the defense as well?
They only have the 3 safeties on the roster now: Reed, Sidney Brown, who's out. Who will be out, probably start on PUP, and now CJGJ.
I think they signed a veteran. That safety room's too young for Howie. He's going to bring in one of those 30-plus-year-old, but not like Justin Simmons 30-plus, like, that 32, 33-year-old. I'd have to go look, but I'm sure there's someone out there that Howie's probably like, that's my guy. Kind of like the Kevin Byard, kind of like the past experiments we've given a shot at that just didn't work. So I would love to see Simmons come in though, but CJGJ, exactly like you said, he's going to be all over that field. He's very important if he can stay healthy for, only miss a couple of games, that would be golden. That's what we want to see. If he could be healthy for the entire season, even better, because that's what we really want. But it is a low risk, definitely a high reward contract that he got. Like you said, it's pretty much one year guaranteed. So it'll be interesting to see how things go. If he has a really good season, how he's going to take that can and he's going to boot it down the road, and he's going to probably give him a restructure, some sort of extension, and
he's
put
only
some more
26.
guarantees. Exactly. He's going to put some more guarantees into that. So he's going to sit there and he's going to be like, if you prove it, I'm sure behind closed doors, how he said, if you prove it, if you can be healthy for us, I will restructure, and that 10 million is going to become a lot more guaranteed money for you.
And like in his press conference today, like he talked about how he wanted to be here. He loves it here. He was happy to be back. And then they asked him about his comments last year about the fans, and he's like, "Look, I'm obnoxious." Or he said, "I'm obnoxious. They're obnoxious. I thought it was I was being. I thought you guys would love it." Look, he apologized. I don't think he needed to apologize. Somebody stole his freaking car. Like, come on, give me a break. I'd be mad too.
And this media just loves to make something of nothing, as we know, or something of everything. So, but I mean, I'm pumped up and back. Like you said, the attitude, we don't have that grit. Like Reed Blankenship, like he gets a big hit and he gets all hyped up, but otherwise, like he's a quieter guy back there. We don't really have that hype up linebacker. Like, this is the guy, this is the attitude that we need. And he's going to bring something that we know we sorely missed last year, and is somebody that demands respect, gets respect, and other players around him feed off of that.
Yep. And yet last night, another big move happened. Eagles signed 26-year-old linebacker who has made a couple Pro Bowls, made an All-Pro, won a Super Bowl, and is still only 26. All this within 5 or 6 years. Devin White of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, 1 year, 7.5, max value of $7.5 million. We were all calling for a linebacker. And there was all this talk of the Eagles potentially trading for somebody, or maybe going into the draft to get a linebacker, which they could still do technically. But Devin White was out there, and he was out there, and Howie made the call, and Devin White is an Eagle. If you look at analytics, if you look at PFF, which I hate PFF, you know this, he's been the worst linebacker the last 3 years or something like that. And he got benched pretty much last year. But I like Devin White. I think a change of scenery is going to do Devin White good. And I mean, he can blitz the quarterback. He's not great in coverage, but maybe that's not what he's going to have to do in this defense. If they draft somebody that can do that, or if Nakobe Dean can stay healthy and he can do it, then they'll be fine. But I like the signing of Devin White, and I think he's going to help this offense or defense. Excuse me.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think KPFF, I mean, that's up for debate, like you said, but obviously they see certain things in the game, just like we see certain things in the game. I think the change of scenery is going to be really good. Like you said, he blitzes the linebacker well. He can come down to the line of scrimmage, be a body there. It'll be interesting to see how he does. He's kind of a liability in coverage, kind of a liability in the run game. But like you said, this can all turn around in this situation within a Vic Fangio defense. Maybe just a whole different defensive scheme will find ways to exploit his strengths instead of his weaknesses. And maybe that's what Fangio, and that's what they're hoping to do. And then that's why Howie made the low risk, potential high reward contract offering. If he has a really good year, would Howie bring him back? Probably not. He would probably go with the next low risk guy next year in free agency. Just as we know how he does. But I mean, I think we definitely really miss TJ Edwards. I wish we had made, now that we see the money that he's going to put into linebacker and probably some potential overcompensation at the position because of how weak it was, I just think he should have brought TJ Edwards back. TJ Edwards was one of the best linebackers we've had in recent memory. The money wasn't that out of control. But like you said, maybe it's just like, the Jonathan Gannon situation. Maybe there was something going on with the Chicago Bears, and maybe Howie didn't actually get a true chance, and there was a bit of tampering going on.
I mean, he is from there too. Maybe he just wanted to go back to Chicago.
Maybe he did.
But yeah, he had a good year last year. TJ Edwards for the Bears. But yeah, we'll see. Again, Devin White's going to be a starter. It's a low bar, but he's the best linebacker the Eagles have had probably since Nigel Bradham.
I would say, yep. I mean TJ Edwards for that
Well, yeah, TJ Edwards.
couple of
That's
years
right.
there
That's right.
was really good. So, but I mean,
But
and I agree with
he's
Michael's
super
comment
athletic.
here. Like, I think he thinks Fangio. I think Fangio is going to play to a lot of his players' strengths. I don't think that he's going to be the guy like
He's
in
not going to
past
pigeonhole them
seasons
into
where
a specific defense.
yeah, and like just kind of like when with Schwartz, we got so annoyed because of how he was trying to put square holes in a circle or square pegs in a circle hole, and it just wasn't working. And a lot of these guys looked worse than they actually were. I think Vic Fangio will try and find those strengths. We've seen him like look at the Andrew Van Ginkels of the world. Like he found these guys, he had these guys who were just kind of there and turn them into vocal points of the defense. And I think that this is something that he can do with a lot of these other guys. Devin White, Huff, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, like some of these guys who we thought would be main pieces of the defense. He's going to find ways to make them even more important pieces of the defense, just in the way that he plays certain situations and plays offenses into his game.
And there's going to be one voice on the defensive, like in the defensive coaching room. It's not going to be Patricia and Desai. Like one voice, it's going to be Fangio. He's going to be the one running it. So like, there's going to be no. And I mean, I know that the Miami players were happy that Fangio left, but they're saying, is Jerome Baker still available? Like, I don't know if he.
I think he is still available.
I don't know if he didn't have a good relationship with Fangio, but like, he's a potential. If they wanted to bring in another linebacker, kind of really redo that linebacker room, but we'll see, because they are probably going to play more of a 3-4. Michael says, I believe Reddick will be traded. I disagree. I think he actually is going to stay. They keep all the pass rushers you can, and he fits under the cap. Like, you're not forced to trade him. They still have they have like $30 million in cap room. Like, you're not going to be forced to trade him. Give him a 2-year extension. That's what I would do.
And I mean, if they can't figure out an extension and they decide to keep him around, he could also be trade bait at the trade deadline, where his value will definitely spike a lot more than it currently is, because it's quite clear that people think that we want to move Hassan Reddick, and that's driving the value down. Look at the Justin Fields market. Once people know the value's not there, and Howie's not the guy to fall to those market situations. He's going to be like, I'll hold my guy. I don't mind having 10 edge rushers, because somebody's going to come knocking on my door when they lose a really important edge rusher in sometime in the season. He's not one of those guys to just fall for that. So, I mean, I don't think he'll trade Reddick unless, like we said earlier, LJ said a deal that includes a first rounder. I said a deal that would be like a 2 and a 4 or some sort of that with pick swaps around. Maybe I'd be good with that too. But I mean, anything like some people said 3 and 5 now. If it's a 3 and a 5, I'm all for keeping Hassan Reddick. He's not on a bad deal. You can make him play the deal out. And if you can work an extension out that works for both sides, even better.
And another move that was made within the last couple of hours, the Philadelphia Eagles traded with the Pittsburgh Steelers for Kenny Pickett. I don't like Kenny Pickett, by the way, so I'm not. But Howie and the Eagles always prioritize the backup quarterback. You want to have somebody that has experience. You want to have somebody that has won games to an extent in the NFL, just in case something. I mean, the Eagles won a Super Bowl with a backup freaking quarterback. So, and then almost beat the Saints the next year in the divisional round with a backup quarterback again. But the Eagles traded 2 7ths in 2025 and a 3rd this year for Kenny Pickett and a 4th this year. Was not expecting that. I mean, obviously there was a lot of talk this year, over the week on Sports Talk Radio about Justin Fields, because the Bears were probably going to take Caleb Williams. They just traded for Keenan Allen, so like maybe they want a Caleb Williams Keenan Allen connection. But that's dead now. And Kenny Pickett grew up an Eagles fan, went to Pitts, but there's pictures going around today of him in a Carson Wentz jersey. Donovan was his favorite Eagles quarterback. What are your thoughts on the Kenny Pickett trade that Howie made today to solidify the backup quarterback role? Which, who knows, maybe he doesn't even get it. Maybe it's Tanner McKee. But we'll see what happens in camp and preseason.
I'm just going to hit on Michael's comment here. He said a third round pick for Pickett is way too much. It's important to point out we moved back 22 picks. That is it, everybody. 22 picks. If we went from 98
Jeremiah
to
Trotter
drafting
Jr.
120.
could have been taken at the 98th pick. Just saying.
There's a chance, but we don't know. And like I said in our EOP group chat today, the way the draft board for Howie Roseman looks right now, I will bet anyone large amounts of money it will not look like that come draft night. He is not going to draft the way that draft board looks. If he feels there's an opportunity to move back up and go and grab, Jeremiah Trotter Jr., maybe he's got Cooper in his sights in round 2. Maybe, we
Cooper's
don't know.
In the first round, bro.
Or maybe he moves back and grabs Cooper at the end of the first round. Maybe he moves out of 22. We don't know. There's so many things at play. But we only ended up moving 22 spots back. And we have a better hit rate on UDFAs than we do on 7th rounders. So I'm okay with moving out some 7th rounders because
Jalen Mills was a 7th rounder. Just saying.
Are we calling Jalen Mills like a hit? I mean, I guess he's better. He ended
Mills
up better than.
Look, I think Jalen Mills was good with the Eagles.
He was good. He was definitely good. At the end of the day, though, I look at this as a purely financial move. He's under contract for less than $1 million next year, and then the next year he's at like $2 million. Both of those together are cheaper than most teams' backup quarterbacks this season.
Like, what did Marcus Mariota get from Washington?
He got what? Didn't he get two for something? Like he was like 5 million average. I think it was 2 at 10 million. Like the market is absurd for backup quarterbacks. This is how Howie does it. This
and
is
wide receivers, by the way.
He took a deflated market on Marcus Mariota last year and paid dirt cheap. And now here he is getting a backup quarterback for the next 2 years. Obviously, we're not going to pick up the 50-year option that he has because it'll be an absurd number. But at that point, he'll hope he found another diamond in the rough that we have as our backup, or he does the same thing, goes and tries again. I did see a report that came up that they did talk to the Chicago Bears about Justin Fields, but it sounds like they couldn't agree on compensation because it sounds like Ryan Poles still wants a lot more than he's worth. He's probably going to have to wait for an in-season move.
I think that would have been trouble bringing Justin Fields here. I'm not a Justin Fields fan guy either, but
no, and I like Pickett because he's not like a complete you could still work the Jalen Hurts offense kind of with Kenny Pickett because he's got some mobility and
he's also not a threat. Justin Fields probably could have been a threat.
Justin Fields, the media probably would have ended up starting to make him a threat if Jalen Hurts struggled with the offense and this new high-powered offense.
Justin Fields should be the starter.
I can see it. I don't hate the deal though, purely from the financial standpoint. You're paying $3 million for this guy over the next 2 years to be your backup quarterback, while other teams are paying $5 to $10 million for a backup quarterback. I'm okay with it from a financial standpoint. I'm okay from a we move 22 picks back standpoint.
Because don't think Kenny Pickett's any good.
I don't think, but how many backup quarterbacks do you sit there and say, oh, this guy's really good? We don't say that about many backup quarterbacks. And he's better. I think he's better than Tanner McKee. He's safer to have out there than Tanner McKee.
That's setting a low bar.
But that's the bar we have to play with right now.
Is he better than Mac Jones?
And he's probably better than Marcus Mariota.
Is he better than Mac Jones?
I mean, I feel like Howie's probably I would have been in on that if he knew the market was that depressed. But I think everyone knew it was that bad.
7th round pick for Mac Jones or 6th round pick for Mac Jones?
It was a 6, but they got a 7 back. It was Jones and a 7, so it was like Mac Jones and a pick swap just to get Mac Jones off the team. So
yeah, I don't know. It was confusing. I was shocked when I saw it. Before we finish off here, a couple of the players that signed elsewhere: Kevin Byard and DeAndre Swift signed in Chicago, Mariota in Washington, Nick Morrow in Buffalo, Jack Stoll with the Giants. Who's the biggest loss? Swift, obviously, probably.
Yeah, definitely DeAndre Swift, but then you kind of mitigate it with bringing in, Saquon Barkley. The difference is $4.25 million. So at the end of the day, you're sitting there and you're like, well, it's 4.25. We could have done more with 4.25. If Howie Roseman needs $4.25 million, he is going to restructure a contract. He's going to do something. I promise, I'm sitting here complaining it's kind of rich for Barkley. But if he needs to find money, if there's one guy I trust to find money, it's going to be Howie Roseman. So I guess I worry, but my worry is null and void because of Howie Roseman's contract structure. And so
that's true. All right. So what was your favorite move by the Eagles in the free agency period thus far?
Oh boy. If I were to pick it, I definitely think I'm going with Gardner Johnson. I mean, we were talking about the safety position the whole time. It was between Barkley and Gardner Johnson because I think Barkley, they both are going to bring such different elements to the offense and the defense that we didn't have last year and that we sorely missed last year. And I think Barkley's going to be really good. I think he's going to have a really great season. But Gardner Johnson brings such a grit, such an attitude that we missed so much last year. It just looked so depressing at times watching that defense. And he's a big playmaker. I mean, he's got like 8 interceptions in 15 games played. Like in the last 2 seasons, he's played 15 games and he's averaging almost an interception every 2 games.
He led the league when he was with the Eagles, and he missed 6 games.
And we've missed that playmaking ability too, because Darius Slay's just not that guy. James Bradbury's far, far, far gone from that guy. None of the cornerbacks we have or the safeties we have are that type of playmaker that Gardner Johnson is in that regard. Yeah, we can see a big hit from Reed Blankenship, but I want turnovers. I want that's what sets your offense up for success. I don't care about, we got a big hit, we got to stop on 3rd down, and here they're kicking a field goal or something. Like, I don't want that. I want the force turnovers, and that's what Gardner Johnson did a lot of. And he was starting to do it in Detroit. He played 5 games for Detroit last year, and he had 2 interceptions. So,
yeah, and he's like
super
Michael
young,
says,
and the contract's low risk.
He brings the personality that the team needs. So I'm happy that he's back. I did want Xavier McKinney, and
so apparently
the Eagles were in it till the end, but he went to Green Bay. Green Bay signing Josh Jacobs and then releasing Aaron Jones was shocking. Dallas not doing anything is funny, but they're all in.
Well, I mean, they let Leighton Vander Esch go, but I think his career's over. And then they let Michael Gallup go. So there you go. You can cheer. You got some moves. It's just not free agents. They need to do something
with Dak's contract, but with those police investigations, they might be holding off on that.
Well, that's the issue. There is you need to figure out Dak, because I mean, you've seen that picture going around? Dak's contract costs more than Jalen Hurts, AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, and what was the other person?
And
Saquon Barkley combined.
And Daniel Jones, yeah.
And same as Daniel Jones. So I mean, they got to figure that, and they got to figure out Lamb and
Micah Parsons.
Those are 2 massive extensions that you need to first figure out your quarterback, and then those 2 guys are top priority, because I mean, they don't have a whole lot of cap space to play with as is. Plus, you have these guys to deal with like ASAP. Like, these are way more important than Dickerson and Devontae Smith to get done. Yeah. Like, that's how vitally important they are.
Before we finish off, Luffy says Devin White, my favorite move. No lie, I think he's going to ball for us. We haven't had a solid linebacker since Nigel. We just mentioned that. Or TJ Edwards was good. Michael says Sidney Brown and Gardner Johnson should start. Sidney Brown will probably be out the first 5 weeks. I still think that if the price is right, if the price comes down, Justin Simmons, bring him in and let Simmons and Gardner Johnson be your starters, with Reed being the 3rd depth safety. If you put Gardner Johnson at like the nickel, and you can bring in Reed Blankenship. But quickly, your thoughts on what the Giants and Washington did? Washington brought in felt like 15 new guys. And a lot of them were from Dallas, obviously, because Dan Quinn, but they got Zach Ertz, Marcus Mariota, Bobby Wagner.
They brought in the all veterans team. Like, this feels like a team that should be in
2018. That team is
yeah, it felt like they were making a move to win now, and I'm like, but you don't really got a quarterback. You're not really there to win now. Like, I don't understand here, but I mean, whatever. Good on them if they want, if they're happy with those moves.
So
but
they're spending it.
They're just spending it, but it's irrationally spending it. The Giants, they're in a whole load of trouble. I mean, that Daniel Jones contract, and we said it last year, was going to be something they sorely regretted, and they are regretting it so much, because there's a good chance that they need to probably draft a quarterback. I think it's the smarter move is to draft a quarterback this year and be ready to move on from Daniel Jones.
It wouldn't shock if the first 4 picks in the draft are going to be quarterbacks. So somebody's going to try. The Vikings are going to try to trade up. They have 2 first-round picks now. The Giants might try to trade up, so it'll be interesting that they signed Devin Singletary. They signed John Runyon Jr., who I thought the Eagles should go after. They traded for Brian Burns. That was a big move for them to pair with.
And then they gave him a humongous extension. I just don't know. I just don't know if I'm there with the Giants yet, because that offense was so bad last year, and you lost the focal point of your offense last year. You have a big
They don't have any
decision to make.
receivers.
And that's the thing. You have a big decision to make. Do you trust Daniel Jones enough that if you draft him elite neighbors, maybe the offense takes a step up? I don't think so. Devin Singletary is a lot worse than Saquon Barkley. And I just don't think Daniel Jones is a guy. So you have to make that big decision of, do we go franchise wide receiver or do we go franchise quarterback? And then we're back in the market next year for a quarterback if you go the wide receiver route.
Michael says Micah will be an Eagle. I never saw a Cowboy player talk about an Eagles team in high regard last season. I know Parsons grew up. I thought he grew up a Dallas fan. I know his family. He said his family did, but it's still Cowboys and Eagles rivalry. I do think he's going to be an Eagle one day.
I would love it if he was an Eagle. That would be amazing. I mean, that would mean, Sweat and Reddick are probably on their way out the door next year. So maybe Howie's kind of like waiting on if things go south there. But I mean, things are already going south. You can tell Micah Parsons is not very happy with the way things are going in Dallas right now and the direction of it. But that's what happens when you have a really hands-on owner who likes to talk and likes to be at the front of all the moves.
Terrible GM. The Commanders also traded Sam Howell to Seattle. So they need a quarterback. They have the number 2 pick, right?
They do. I think. I mean, they're definitely
so is
going
it
with
be Drake May or
Jaden Daniels, probably.
Jaden Daniels.
Or I mean, you could, if you buy them some of the hype, maybe JJ McCarthy.
He is awful.
I wouldn't. But I mean,
he shouldn't be a first round pick. But the NFL is all about the quarterback, so they're gonna get over it. All right. We will definitely be doing some draft shows soon. I can't wait. We do our mock drafts. But yeah, the Eagles are making moves and have improved this team so far. I don't know why this is almost like last year when teams didn't go after Lamar Jackson. Again, I'm not a big Justin Fields guy, but the Giants should. You can get Justin Fields for like a 3rd round pick probably. You ain't got to trade. You don't have to trade a first rounder. Washington.
I ultimately think Fields gets traded in season or right before the season when somebody goes down with an injury, and then suddenly Poles gets the
Pittsburgh should trade for him.
market.
He could be the backup to Russell, and when Russell sucks, he can go in.
I mean, you have the same offense. The offense would be built the same for the two of them, pretty much. So, I mean, it's tough I don't know what's going on with Fields. I think Poles thinks he has more leverage than he does. Whereas I think he just wait for the season to happen and an injury to happen, and suddenly he gets the market he's looking for.
Imagine we trade Reddick and picks for Micah.
Well, now we're getting a little crazy.
That's the only way. You give us Micah Parsons, we'll give you Reddick.
But it's still crazy. Like the asking price for Parsons would be just astronomical. It's not just a Reddick and a 1 here. Like you're probably asking for quite a bit more.
As of right now, Marcus Mariota is QB1 for Washington. All right, we are over an hour now, but thank you all for tuning into the Kelly Green Hour. As always, follow us on Twitter at Kelly Green Hour. Follow Connor on Twitter at Connor10. Follow me on Twitter at LJHurl54. And follow Edge of Philly Sports on Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook at Edge of Philly Sports. We appreciate all the comments. We will be back probably next week, when
we'll figure out a show.
Yeah, hopefully the Eagles make a couple more moves and maybe sign Justin Simmons, make a trade, whatever. And we are a little over a month away from the NFL draft in Detroit. So we will definitely start having some mock draft shows, first round mock draft, Eagle mock drafts, just to see what we think. We're never right. Obviously, these are mocks for a reason, but it'll be fun to do. So yeah, for Connor, I'm LJ. Thank you all for tuning in to the Kelly Green Hour.